Speaking with Confidence, the podcast that helps you build the soft skills that lead to real results. Communication, storytelling, public speaking, and showing up with confidence in every conversation that counts. I'm Tim Newman, a recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on a journey to becoming a powerful communicator. Today's guest is John Ball. John is a keynote and presentation coach who mostly works with professional speakers, coaches, and leadership teams, helping their communication go from competent to captivating. He's the host of the Present Influence podcast, the professional speaking show, for experts who want to create impact, influence, and inspiration with their talks. John also co-hosts the Coaching Clinic podcast with his good friend Angie. John is a keynote speaker who talks on topics like personal mastery and bridging the leadership communication skills gap. He also publishes a small but punchy LinkedIn newsletter related to his podcast. He's a bit cheeky and likes to joke around. He's got stories and lots of them. He says he's not going to share any not safe for work ones, but hopefully we can persuade him to share some good ones. John, welcome to the show. This is going to be so much fun. You know,
it's quite an introduction. Thank you.
Well, you know, it's what you do, and I love the fun part. I like it when people, you know, don't take themselves too seriously. And one of the things I did really like about in your bio, and I joke about a lot, is you say you have a face for audio content and a body for birthday cake.
That's me.
And I laugh because I tell people I've got a face for radio and a voice for silent movies. And
and yet you're here doing this.
Yeah. And that's the fun part. I think, you know, people take themselves a little bit too seriously and everything has to be, you know, buttoned up and locked in and very professional. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, but I just can't do it. Life's too short. Let's have some fun in the things we're doing.
Yeah. There's enough troubles in the world without us needing to add to them or take it all too seriously. A bit of laughter now and again is much better.
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, you're from the UK, but you're currently living in Spain.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about how living and traveling around the world has influenced the way you show up as a speaker and a coach. Because, you know, here in the United States, you know, a lot of us, we don't do that, the type of traveling that people from other countries do. So kind of give us a little bit of that background for us.
Well, I feel like I've been very fortunate in my life to have, I kind of lucked into becoming a flight attendant for 12 years. And it feels almost accidental more than anything else. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so I got to see the world and work around the world in different environments as well. And more than anything, I learned, you know, as much as cultures can be different, sometimes even very different to what we are used to, there are always ways to connect with people. There's always ways to make people laugh. If you can share a language, sometimes even if you can just be understood in some way, there's always ways to communicate and connect with people and to unite. So I do think that that's one of the things that definitely global travel has taught me over the years. And I have this personal philosophy that wherever I am can be home if I choose for it to be home. Even if I'm in a hotel room somewhere, I can choose to have that. I feel at home here. I can be at home. So I don't get homesick when I travel around. And so I can feel comfortable and confident wherever I am and connect with people around me, that there's always opportunities for that too. So travel has opened my mind in many ways, but it's also expanded my horizons for what's possible and for my comfort levels, so be able to feel like I can fit in or at least feel comfortable just about anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and how do you find humor that really kind of is something that's relatable no matter where you are, that also helps, you know, build that comfort level?
Yeah. Sometimes it is just about playfulness more than telling jokes.
Right.
And so it isn't necessarily that I need to do a stand-up routine for, you know, if I'm in Japan and no one's going to understand it necessarily, it's not necessarily that. But if I'm just a little lighthearted about things, a bit playful, I'm smiling, I'm warm, I show warmth to other people, that they feel that they can do that as well. And I know sometimes they said that some cultures don't necessarily feel like they are that warm. And yet my experience has always been that you will find the people who are when you show those things for yourself. People that people are looking to connect, people are looking for those opportunities. So showing up with warmth and a desire to connect and to
Right.
understand each other and to have new experiences, learn from new people, is always opportunities that they always feel like growth and development for me. I always have something to learn from others, and I hope they find something to learn from me too.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. To be able to learn from others, you have to be open to doing that too. You have to be open to to the way other people see things, the way other people's connect, the way that they uh, learn, listen, and communicate. And I think that's one of the biggest ways biggest ways to learn is just by being open to it,
Yeah.
and so then it just becomes natural. I mean, I think there's a way that we can be very intentional about it, and there's times for that, but there's also times to just being open to letting things happen and learning that way as well.
Yeah, I think certain gestures and facial expressions are pretty universal,
Hmm.
and we can apply them anywhere. And those are the things that tend to give people the initial impression of what we're like as a person, anyway. And so, if we establish those things, the language issue is less problematic because we still tend to like people who we feel we like, even if we don't fully understand each other.
Right, right. And you said when we first started this that it's not about necessarily telling jokes all the time, but you do some open mic comedy, and
Yeah.
which I think is awesome. I don't know that I could ever do that because I don't think I'm funny, but why do you believe every speaker should try stand up at least once?
um, I think because it is so scary, it was something that scared me so much, and I wasn't sure
Mm.
I could do it. There's always that thing of, is what comes out of my head that might be funny to me, are other
Right.
people going to find that funny as well? And we don't know, and sometimes we're a bit afraid of finding out. We don't really want to put ourselves in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are somewhat safe ways to do it, and I often will tell the story of, like, I'll tell you about my very first ever time doing open mic. Um, I'd been putting it off forever, like, just didn't want to do it. But I finally got inspired by a guest on my show, to go for it, to do it. And she's been doing comedy for years, and she still does open mic nights just for fun, just to connect with people and to try different things out.
Right.
And I, well, if you can still want to do that all this time, I should at least give it a go because I don't know what I'm missing. And so when I went there, I just gave myself permission to bomb. It's okay if I bomb. That's fine. I can do it. Success here is just me getting up on that stage,
Right.
being scared to get up on that stage. If it all goes horribly wrong, fine. It goes horribly wrong, but I will have still done it. I've put myself forward. I've put myself at least into the situation where things could happen. Now, a few people who were on before me did bomb, which so I was pretty lucky that the bar was set low, thankfully. So, but it just made me feel more comfortable. It's like, okay, it's okay to bomb. Nothing happened
Right.
to them. They
Right.
survived it. They come off the stage. They're still smiling. One of them was even a professional comedian who just unfortunately bombed that particular night. And so I get up on stage. I did my act. I think I have to say, I think I got the most laughs of the night, which is great. But it was amazing. Even if that hadn't happened, I was just so desperate to get back up there and do it again. But the challenge of all of that, it was so confronting, and also having to take parts of your life and put them into a context that finds the funny and that finds the humor in life is a
Right.
great reframe. Whilst we shouldn't use stand-up comedy for our own therapy as such, it does have some effects like that because you are pushed into reframing things in your life that where there may have been some pain or trauma even. As a communicator, I think it's essential that you be able to at least add some lightness, some humor into your communication.
Right.
And unless you really never find anything funny or never laugh at things, you can probably find a way to be funny. You just need to know the right tools or setups
Right.
to do that and create some material. And not everything's going to get a great laugh, but some stuff will. If you can at least get some laughs or chuckles now and again in a talk or a presentation that take away, like, especially if it's a serious presentation, if you're presenting end of year results and stuff and they're not
Uh,
been great, it's going to be a bit of a serious meeting. But if you can add a bit of lightness to that, that's going to cut through the tension. It's going to put
mhm.
people at ease, and it's going to make you seem like a much more engaging and charismatic leader as well.
Yeah, I love that you said that too. for any number of different reasons. First, the whole idea of do it scared, do it. I wouldn't say do it petrified, but yeah, do it as petrified as you are, right?
Yeah.
If you think about all the times that we do other things scared, whatever it is, I'm married now, so I would never do this now. But when I was dating, going up and talking to a woman, or asking for a date, or
right,
whatever, we do all those other things scared or with trepidation.
Yeah.
This is something that, like you said, nothing. What's the worst that's going to happen compared to what's the best thing that's going to happen? You do an open mic night. Okay, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to bomb. The best thing that's going to happen is people are going to be laughing their heads off for maybe for days, because they're going to go back and think about, oh, remember what John said? Remember that joke John told? Whatever it is. So so do things when we're scared, or when we have some anxiety over it, and stop thinking about what's the worst thing that's going to happen, and start thinking about what that best thing is.
Yeah, if everything in life, if we always knew everything in life would go well, there'd never be any real challenge in life, would there? There'd be nothing, no fear, nothing to overcome, no growth because of that as well. So we do grow from these sorts of challenges that we can present ourselves. And so, you're right. So what's the worst that could happen? Because probably the worst that could really happen is that things don't go the way you want them to, and you get in your head about it and start beating yourself up about it. That's something that people just tend to do. But if you can lower the stakes for yourself and say, hey, look, it's no big deal. I lowered the stakes for myself. It's no big deal. If I bomb, I bomb, but I've done it. I've done the thing that I've been so afraid of for such a long time. That really is the thing. Going up and talking to that beautiful person who you think is very attractive, that might be scary, because there's always that fear of rejection, not being accepted, and rejection stings. But again, what's the worst that could happen? You're no worse off if nothing happens than you were before. it's just the conversation that's going on in our head it can either be empowering or disempowering. It tends to be, for most people, disempowering. Oh, you suck, you're not a good girl, you're not attractive enough, or they didn't like, or whatever is going on for you, weren't funny enough, nobody laughed. We beat ourselves up.
Exactly. And as I think about it, when I asked my wife to marry me, she told me she had to think about it. So you think about rejection. And then when I asked her dad, he told me no. So it's you got to laugh. I mean, I got all kinds of stories about being rejected, so you just become numb to it, and
but it wasn't the end of the story, right?
No, it's not the end of the story, right? It's just like anything else. And one of the other things that I really like that you mentioned was the whole idea of charisma. And is charisma something, I talk to people, some people say charisma can be coached, it can be built. Others say that it's, you either have it or you don't. I'm in the camp of, you can develop charisma. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
100%. I think you can develop charisma. Some people do have it very natural, seem to have it very naturally, and that's great when they do. I think some of the main elements of charisma, especially as a speaker or presenter, are really just, it comes from various research. One part of it being from Vanessa Van Edwards, who has some amazing research and books on this topic, but just being on stage and portraying the qualities of warmth and competence. So if you come across as someone who has warmth about you, and someone who is like, it's relatable. It's like, we like people who are warm, not people who are frosty cold. And we like people who seem to know what they're talking about and have some level of competence with that. If you can show that you have those things, you're already a big part of the way there. But I think people tend to think of charisma in terms of you have to always be the life and soul of the party. You always end up being, I think it gets very tied to extroversion.
Yes.
And they're not the same thing. And I do think charisma can be learned and can be applied in particular situations, maybe not every part of your life. But ultimately there are, it was interesting to me that, and I'll just say this, so many people who do get into talking about charisma get into it because their initial interest in it is dating.
Yes.
and getting laid, right? I mean, that's why a lot of people who talk about this or even teach it get into it in the first place. And that wasn't the case for me. It wasn't something that I thought I need to get more charisma so I can, be more successful dating or anything like that. And that wasn't really the case. It was more a case of being interested in what makes people influential, what makes
Right.
people persuasive, that I've been fascinated in for years and years, and starting to pull that apart and understand. I want to get into what are the principles
Mhm.
that make somebody more appealing, more persuasive, more attractive, more charismatic. And a lot of it is from knowing who you are and owning it, being
Yes.
okay with your own flaws, your own faults, being aware of what they are, being unashamed of them, unapologetic for living your life, owning your mistakes, admitting to them, and showing that you've learned from them. But also being interested in other people, not putting your ego above them. There's so many different elements.
Yeah.
There's more as well, but these are some things that are at the heart of charisma. There's people who really show an interest in you, who ask you questions, and
Yes.
they just feel really warm, and you just want to keep answering their questions.
Mhm.
That's charisma. That's something you remember them. You feel like, oh wow, they were nice. They were really interested, and you probably get a warm feeling from them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you said that you number one is that you're showing interest in other people, because that right there to me is something that really builds a connection as well. Even if you're talking about something that you may not necessarily agree with, but if you've got if you're showing that person that you're interested in what they're saying, that maybe they may be the most important person in the room, that's something that's going to really build that connection as well.
Yeah. There's that quote that's often attributed to Maya Angelou. She may have said it, but she didn't originate it. That people won't always remember what you say, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Right.
And I think that's very, very true. It's like this is about generating emotion in people,
Mhm.
feeling, connection. And that could only come from genuine interest. I
Right.
think some elements of charisma can be faked. I'm not going to pretend that they can't. And you should watch out for that, because it's like, there is just evidence that um, sociopaths, psychopaths
Right.
understand these principles and are able to act within them and come across as people who have charisma. But if they have charisma, but they're also showing sort of dark traits, they're also showing maybe they're a bit bullying, maybe they're super dominant, maybe they always need a bit of praise and support, maybe they are always putting other people down to feel
Mhm.
better. They don't like any kind of criticism. Those are the red flags that will say,
Yes.
all right, this is potentially somebody who might be a bit sociopathic. They might be at least a bit very narcissistic.
Yes.
These are dark, what they call dark triad traits, that you really want to just flag for yourself, because they
Right.
could indicate that that person is not a good person. They're probably not that genuine. They are pretending. The charisma is an act.
Exactly. And those types of things will eventually show their heads, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if maybe not to you that initially, but maybe that person could have done it to somebody else, and then they see that they're treating you that way, and they say, now I really see what this person is about, and what this person is doing, um, and and I think that's one of the things that really kind of separates is charm and charisma, right?
Yeah.
Char-
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
I think charisma is more is obviously more genuine. Charm is an act.
Yeah, it can be. I
Mm.
remember my grandmother saying to me when I was a child, "Beware of charming men." She said, and it's like, she was quite right as well. It's something to at least pay attention to, because it
Yeah.
could indicate that there's some toxicity beneath that, but it doesn't always. So
Right.
it's just
Right. Right.
something to be aware of. If someone's buttering you up, complimenting you all the time, all
Uh,
those kinds of things, love bombing you, it's called.
right.
This and a lot of this stuff ties into. I'm very interested in cults. I don't know if you've ever looked into cults and how they operate. Not just religious cult, any kind of cult,
Right.
personality cults, all of that. They operate on the same kind of principles. These are just like, you can have cults of one person, small group cults, cults of personality,
Mm.
cults of religion, but they operate on the same principles, and they're all kind of controlling, bullying, power positioning. And when you understand those sorts of principles, very powerful. I think it's good for anyone to know that, because I think knowledge does give you it's like getting your shots. It's a bit of immunity. It's not a guarantee,
Okay.
but it's some immunity from these things
Right.
that you're more likely to recognize when you're confronted with them.
And how does that really relate to the whole idea of knowing yourself? Because you mentioned that, and I'm a big believer in we at least here in the States, we don't really teach people how to critically think about themselves and really get to know who they are and what they're all about. How
Yeah.
does that relate to that?
Do you know what? I've definitely been in periods of my own life where I haven't really felt like I knew who I was
Mhm.
or what I was about. I think most people can probably relate to that at
Yes.
some point. And I no longer think that it's a journey so much to uncover that as more of a decision of that
Mm.
you kind of decide who you want to be showing up as in life, what's important to you, what really matters, and how you want to live and experience your own life. Do you want a life that has good, positive challenge in it, or do you want a life that just kind of rolls along, massive comfort level, no real challenges, just try and get through it, get to the end of it as comfortably as possible? I choose to have a life that has good, positive challenge in it,
Yes.
and so I create a lot of those challenges for myself because I've tried the coasting, I've tried the smooth sailing stuff, and it's boring,
Boring.
and you don't feel like you're really getting anywhere, and you don't feel like you really know yourself. So I think until you do start challenging yourself and
Mhm.
interacting with other people, you don't really know how
Right.
you want to be, who you want to be showing up as in this world. It is making those decisions. Who do I want to be showing up as in this life? How do I want to experience my life? Because I can either be affecting people positively or I can be infecting them with negativity and other things as well. So,
Mhm.
there's really the choices that we make define who we are rather than some X marks the spot treasure hunt to try and find the real you. It
Right.
really is the choices and decisions that you want to make of how you want to show up in your life and how you want others to experience you as well as much as how you want to experience things for yourself.
Yeah. And I think back, I've had a couple, periods in my life, or more than a couple, let's just say a few periods of my life where I've kind of fallen into that comfort, and not growing and not doing the things that I knew I wanted to do, or or, or getting to the places I knew I wanted to get. And one of the things that I found with me is, you said it, negativity starts to creep in, and I'm not the positive, person for other people that I want to be, and I can see the negativity and how I'm treating other people, and it sometimes it has taken me a little bit to get out of that to move forward, but understanding where we are and being able to move forward, I think is really important as
Yeah.
well.
There's a simple principle in personal development of cause and effect. You may have come across it before, but this is about living how we live. Do we live at cause
Mhm.
or do we live in effect?
Right,
And so, living at cause is choosing the path of your life, choosing how you want to
right,
show up, how you want to be experiencing your life. Living in effect is having that all decided for you. I
for
mean,
you.
when you get caught up in traffic in the morning, you're in a bad mood for the rest of the day. Someone else has affected your mood, and how you experience your life for that day. World events piling onto you, we can easily get buried under
Yes,
all of that and the negativity, and yet we could choose something else. We don't have to be buried under that.
right.
We can make another choice for ourselves. We're like, well, yeah, there's plenty of unhappiness, plenty of
Mhm.
sadness, tragic things going on in the world, but does us being miserable help that? Does us
No,
being miserable, or are we kind of just adding to the problem? Whereas perhaps we could be being a bit more being of service in some way.
yes.
Maybe that service is just putting a smile on someone's face or helping someone out or doing a random act of kindness or
Mhm.
whatever it could be. But as soon as we start to move into the service mindset for
Right.
others, that it's not all about us and our fulfillment and our gratification, then I think we have much more possibility to live a more fulfilled life than if we're only concerned about what we're getting out of the deal.
Right. And, doing what we do, we talk about it's not about us all the time, right? And especially from a speaking perspective, it's not about us. I think you're the first person that's mentioned that it's not about us ever.
Yeah.
Right. And that's,
We're
but
not.
that's right. I mean, when we're dealing with other people, it's not about it's about us adding value and pouring into
Sure.
other people and that sort of thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's important for the audience to get and grasp and think on that for a few minutes.
It's about us to only to the extent of the decisions that we're making of how we want to show up and
Right.
how we want other people to feel when they're interacting with us. Like, what are we aiming, what are we actually trying to put out there into the world? If we're not
Mhm.
conscious about that, then it's just whatever happens to be going on that day. Whereas if we're more conscious about that, there's a good chance that people are going to feel much happier, and they're going to want to interact with us more
Yes.
if we're showing up as with high value, with good energy,
Mhm.
with positivity toward them, with warmth at least, or understanding, compassion, all those good things, empathy, all the things we hope and want and hope people will have and show towards each other. It's hard to deal with life when we encounter people who aren't like that, or situations that aren't like that. But it's like when you've made those decisions for yourself, it does then just become about everyone else. It's like you're doing this for them, serving other people,
Right.
because that's where you will find greater fulfillment ultimately. If you're only trying to fill your own bucket, there's
It-
never going to be enough. We see it
right.
over and over again. It's like there's only so much fame you can have, there's only so much money you can have. And I see a lot of people who do have like high levels of success in one particular area often will start to focus on philanthropy and helping other people, because that's where they really start to find meaning in their in
Exactly.
themselves and their lives.
Exactly. And that's a perfect point. And I think you may appreciate this more than some. You know, when we came on and we got on, yes, I said, I'm doing great, I'm doing awesome. Right. And I say that all the time, whether that's on I'm really doing great and doing awesome, or sarcastically. And whoever I'm talking to never really knows, because number one, I don't know what's going on in that person's life. And maybe if a smile, maybe if there's some uplifting things, and I could be that person, that's great. And they don't need to know that I got cut off on the way into work. They don't need to know that I got an argument with my kids or my wife. They don't need. It's not that. Let's be that positive person. And now, the people within my inner circle know when I'm being sarcastic or not. Right. but the general public, I mean, let's be uplifting and positive and bring that value to them. And it's best day ever.
Put
Wow.
good energy out there.
Yeah.
There's a guy, one of the first guys I started learning from in personal development. He's not really. There's all sorts of problems there, so I'm not going to name names or anything like that. But one thing he said, he would say a lot that stuck with me. His answer would be, "Feeling good for no good reason. Feel good.
Yeah.
No good reason. Just feel good." It's like, great. We should be more like that in our lives. It's like happiness doesn't have to be this conditional thing. Feeling good doesn't have to be conditional on whether the weather's good that day, or whether the news has been okay, or whether your health is. Or it's a choice. It's a life decision that we have to try and keep making for ourselves. And that's also then what are we putting out there as well? It's like, well, we can feel good for no good reason. This isn't about, there's some people, some people say, oh, well, you should just be honest about it. If you're not feeling great and someone says, how are you? You should tell them. I'm like, no, I don't necessarily think that's the case. If they're a confidant, if there's someone who you feel comfortable sharing that stuff with, and that's the right kind of circumstance and situation. But otherwise, I think put out good energy, feeling good, feeling great. How are you today? Wherever we can, if we can spread a bit of joy and happiness, we make the world a bit of a better place.
Yeah, and let's take that a step further, because even if you're not, and you're sharing that with somebody who you don't know, or is not in, like you said, in that confidant or inner circle, if you start acting that way, you're going to start feeling that way too.
Right.
Right.
Natural empathy,
right.
natural connection, mirror neurons,
Mm-hmm.
and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We start to get into the states of the people around us, and so it's very easy to be pulled into emotional states by other people. So this is again taking that responsibility. Where do you want to be leading them emotionally? Do you want to pull them into your negativity as well, or do you want to
That's who you're talking to, right?
Right, yeah, it probably does, but it is those kinds of decisions of, do you want to pull someone down or lift them up in this moment? And we don't always necessarily. The more we practice lifting them up in that moment, the more likely we'll do it offhand. So I don't think there's anything negative or bad around, someone says, "How are you?" I say, "I'm wonderful. I feel great." But I do think the flaccid in between responses are probably the worst ones to me.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
ones
yeah,
that just,
yeah.
"Yeah, I'm all right." No energy to that. There's no, what am I supposed to infer from this? Yeah.
Exactly, and I love this part of the conversation, and it all revolves around this whole idea of charisma again. But how do we kill our charisma? Because I mean, if we're sitting in the audience, we see it. We see it almost immediately, right? But what are some charisma killers?
Overthinking is probably one of the worst ones, getting in our heads about stuff, because
Uh-huh.
as soon as we stop being fully present with an audience or with anyone that we're
Mhm.
with, then we are already creating a barrier between them. So if we mess up or make a mistake, if we can't laugh about it or improvise our way around it, just dance around it and carry on. If we let it take us out or say, "Oh, I can't continue. I've made a mistake now," we're going to kill our charisma as well. As soon as the audience feels like anyone's on the way down in any way, shape, or form, you're done. Your
Yeah.
charisma's dead. You're not going to be able to recover that as well. And I've seen people unravel emotionally on stage before now because they've had personal issues going on. Well, far better to maybe just cancel the gig or get someone else up there than to go put yourself through that in front of an audience of however many people as well
Right.
who get to watch the unraveling. But there's a lot of things just in how we relate to people. If your ego gets in the way, if you start
Oh.
thinking you're
Oh.
above people and you're talking at them rather than with them, there's a very different energy to that. So we
Mhm.
want to be connecting, trying to talk, especially like the situation like this. You might be doing a podcast or a YouTube thing on your own. So you're just talking to a camera, and you still need to have some charisma. So you need to imagine that you're connecting with whoever is on the other side of that camera. You might really want to then imagine one of your good friends, or maybe even your best friend, is on the other side of the camera, or there, that you are talking, giving the talk or the presentation or whatever you're doing to them,
Yeah.
and maybe only to them, but it's for everyone as well.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that can really start to kill and damage your charisma if you let them.
Yeah. And your last point, I resemble that remark. I, I, I do. Obviously, I do an interview podcast, and then I do a solo episode once a week too. And I hope that I'm getting better at it. But just talking into the camera by myself, not being able to see interaction, is very, very difficult for me, because I'm somebody who, as a recovering college professor, teaching, I can see if I've lost them almost immediately, and I can get back on track. But and they're only 10 to 15 minutes, but doing a 10 to 15 minute teaching lesson with no interaction, no facial expressions, or nothing, for me it's like death, because
Yeah.
and I think I'm getting better at it, but it's hard, because I don't truly know until after I put it out there and I start getting feedback from the audience, or again, my inner circle, who sometimes I'll send it to them. I'll say, tell me before I post this, those types of
Yeah.
things. But it's hard for me.
It's something to develop over time, and I don't think we should be too harsh on ourselves if we're working on that skill and developing it. I don't know that I couldn't be. I'm sure I could be better at it than I am. It's like there's always room for growth and development.
Mm-hmm.
Even people who may feel like they have mastery in this area, if you ever feel like you get to a place where you have nothing to learn, I think you're
Oh,
only
yes.
going to damage your own potential to be better than you are right now. Because realistically, I think if you're not better 6 months from now or 12 months from now than you are now, you're not growing, you're not
You're not growing.
developing. And if you're not growing, what are you doing? You're stagnating at best.
Mm-hmm. Right. And especially doing what we do, I think it's important that our audience sees us growing and doing the things to get better.
100%. There's something some people maybe wouldn't feel comfortable leaving up, like early episodes of podcasts or old YouTube videos. I'll leave it all out there, because I want people to be able to look at step one of the journey and then look at step 250 of the
Right.
journey
Exactly.
and see some growth, see some change there. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
this isn't doesn't seem like the same guys. Well, that should be the case. There should have
Right.
been that level of growth and development, but none of us want to have to go through, the dip and have to deal with the process of getting through the different levels of competence until it's more unconscious competence for us and we can just do things naturally until it's like within us and we've embodied it. But that takes a long time, and most of us don't want to go through the process. We just want the instant fix, the instant gratification, and
Yeah.
let's plug into the matrix and download it all, and now I can do it. I know kung fu.
Yeah, and that's not really how it works. But how do you personally test and refine stories before bringing them on stage or working with a client?
Oh boy, stories are interesting. It does depend on the kind of story.
Mhm.
Personal stories, particularly. Um, I do really look to make sure that I understand what the transformation point is in the story. What
Mhm.
does the story fulfill the purpose of what it's going to be there for? And do I have better stories? If they're maybe my own or maybe other people's, do I have better stories that illustrate this before I put a story into a talk? If it's storytelling competition, that's a little bit different.
Right.
But for putting something into a talk, is like there has to be a purpose for the
Right.
story, so it's there to illustrate a point. It maybe is there to help show a journey of transformation. And if it's my own transformation, then I'm going to look to tell the story as concisely as possible, but still make it a journey, still make it a story. And so when I'm constructing that, yeah, the key transformation point, the jump off point, like I may even stop a story sometimes before I get to the transformation point and come back to it later with the transformation and continue it
Oh
on
wow, that's a
from
good one.
there.
Yeah.
Because it's like the hooks that you start to put
Mhm.
into a talk, or if you're going to open your talk up with a story, you might not close it until the finish of your talk because you're keeping that mental tab open for people in their brains. The story construction itself is really just make sure it makes logical sense. You may have to condense timelines. That's really
Mhm.
important to think. Take out, it's like killing, there's an expression, kill your darlings. You probably have to take out all the stuff that you might want to put in there.
Yes.
So you might first of all tell it the way you might tell it to a friend or to a loved one, but then you have to condense it from there. And so you might have to kill your darlings, take out some of the stuff you like, just to have the story be more punchy, more concise, more
Mhm.
impactful. But there should be an emotional flow to the story as well,
Right.
because if there's no emotional buy-in from your audience, the story is going to have less impact for them as well. So you want them to be able to connect in with your story, because what happens when we tell a story is that people start to visualize it generally. Not everyone's good with visualization, but most people will be
Right. Mhm.
putting themselves into it. It's like imagine themselves, or maybe think of a situation I've had like that, or how I would react in that situation. They're starting to picture what that situation would look like in their mind's eye. And so that way, there's like they're playing it almost like a film. They're starting to see the story for themselves. So it has to flow and it has to make sense. And it has to remove any extraneous detail. It needs to be told in mostly in the present tense. You might
Yeah.
flash back to past tense at some points, but as the story, tell the story as it's happening, so that it's an experience that they have right now with you. But one of the things is it should have some emotional impact, and you
Yes.
need to decide what you want that to be. And I generally take the attitude of I want people to. I don't necessarily always need them to be laughing when I tell a story. I'm probably going to put humor into it because
Humor.
that's
Yes.
my style
That's
of doing
right.
things.
Mhm.
But sometimes I'll put humor into it to make a bigger impact for something more dramatic or something a bit more emotional.
Mhm.
And because it will do that, the contrast will
Yes.
increase the impact. But I don't want to be I don't want my audience in tears. I don't want my audience crying all the time. Because, and telling that sad story, because I have to go into the emotional state myself
Right.
to help pull them into it, to lead them into it. And this is something I think important to understand, not just in storytelling, but in presenting in general. Your emotional state will be leading, directing the audience as to where to go, and they'll be you'll be leading them into something good or something maybe not so good. You should be aware of what that is. Sometimes there's benefit or value in taking some audiences into something that is a little sadder, But if you're trying to elicit tears, if you're trying to have the audience crying, I feel that that's really on the manipulation side of things. And it's like, well, why do you want them doing that? I do think you're far better off to be putting out positive stories, good
Mhm.
feeling in general, but fit that into the purpose of your talk. So yeah, I do think we should steer clear of emotional manipulation, but we should encourage an emotional journey and
Right.
interaction with the talk, with the story.
Yeah. And again, I think you really nailed it in that you have to put yourself in that emotional state as you're telling the story for it to come across the way you actually want it to come
Yeah,
across as authentic. Okay, because we want them side by side with us as through that journey of the story. And um, I'm what I'm one of the things that I am personally working on right now is developing more stories. And what I'm working on, uh, my coach has me a lot of times. I get into the details, like you say, killing the darns. I hate doing that because to me the those are that's the gold for me,
right.
right? May not necessarily be the point that I'm trying to convey, but it's those other pieces that are gold for me. And so he's helping me get from a 5 or 6 minute story down to 3 minutes. Get in, get to the point, whatever it is, and then move on to the next piece, because you don't want people to lose. You don't want to get lost in that story. People
Yeah.
people will shut out. And I'm like you. There's doesn't matter what I'm talking about. There's going to be some humor in it, even. And I'm not a big like you. I'm not a big fan of the emotion of the sad emotion, because that's not why I don't think that's why people want to hear, because there's enough sadness everywhere. When you're on stage, or you're leading the meeting or whatever, there's enough of sadness and decrepitness everywhere else. Let's lift them up, even if it's a, a an emotional point. We can still have some levity to it.
It's generally better to do that. I find myself
Mhm.
saying a lot in interviews at the moment, but Shakespeare understood very well that it was important to put comic relief in the middle of a tragedy. It's like
Mhm.
we have to break up that emotion. There's only so much you can take. Like the full tragedy all the way through with no emotional break or change is
Mhm.
too much for people to
Yeah.
handle. That they will lose interest. It's very similar in a talk as well. Like I do know speakers who have a very sad story to tell that's part of what they get booked for speaking, but
Mhm.
they will lighten aspects and they don't go into misery themselves. They might be talking about their own resilience, and they'll be talking
Right.
about things they've gone through that might be kind of horrific or sad sometimes. But you generally will never come away from most of those speakers feeling bad or feeling negative about it. You only feel, wow, they went through something amazing, and they something horrific, but they came
Yeah.
through it with lessons, with grace, and have carried on. They've made change. They've maybe
Right.
even made national change by becoming activists for improving something that affected them. Or it's like there's all sorts of potential for good things to come out of the bad, but they should be. If it's just bad and it's getting people feeling worse and worse,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't think we're going to a good place with our audiences. Yeah, but definitely, I want my audiences to leave with a smile. Um, there's enough stuff going on in their lives that isn't good or happy without adding to it.
Exactly. Exactly. So if someone wanted to improve their communication, like as soon as they get done listening to us, what would be the one thing you challenge them to start working on?
To improve their communication, stage time. Just
Yeah.
get up there and do it. There's nothing you can beat. No amount of learning, no amount of communication videos. As much as they can be. I'm not saying they're not good. I put loads of them out myself, and there's lots of good people out there who do. They will help, but nothing will make as much of a difference for you as getting up on a stage or getting up in front of people and just doing it, doing what you need to do to improve your communication. So, a Toastmasters club or some other speaking organization,
Mhm.
um, or doing an open mic night or whatever it is for you. But just getting up and doing it will be your biggest path to growth. And then you can apply the things that you learn in the videos rather than just filling your head with all this knowledge that you
Right.
still haven't actually gone and put into practice.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I love that you said that. Nothing ever happened if people don't do anything. So
Right.
you can think about it all you want, but until you start doing it, it's you haven't actually developed the skill.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So the Sufi poet Rumi says something along the lines of like the moon and stars turn in your head. I was like, well, the life of the universe can be going on inside your mind, but we must put stuff out into the world. We must take action if we want to see things change. It's like it's not enough to know it or to think about it. We have to do it. We have to move our feet and take action.
exactly. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us. Where's the best place that people can connect with you?
All right. My website, presentinfluence.com, is the best place to come and get with me. You'll find there's a quiz there for your charisma. You can see how good your charisma score is. You can check out my podcast episodes. You can see what programs I offer, and all the other good stuff about me is all on the website, presentinfluence.com.
And I'll put those links in the show notes for everybody. But
Thank you.
John, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really do appreciate it, and I love the whole idea of levity and adding humor to everything that we do. So thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Tim.
Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Forum for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change the world. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.